Story 1. Oh, that's easy. 2 years later, they just told me they found me attractive back then, but now they're married. Story 2. If you notice someone regularly staring at you when you are not looking, it could mean they are interested in you or they dislike you. Story 3. When they keep showing up at your house and your mom says, "The neighbor girl really likes you." Story 4. I love reading threads like these and realizing, based on all the situations others have presented, that none have ever applied to me and no one has ever been attracted to me. Story 5. The eye contact becomes more intense and prolonged, and you realize that no matter how big the crowd is, they are still able to focus their gaze on you. Story 6. When they look into your eyes and their face begins to shine, they smile often. They have time to do things with you. Story 7. I would separate them into two large groups: body language and general communication. Body language: 1. Sustained eye contact. 2. Standing or sitting closer than necessary. 3. Touching their face, hair, or neck while talking to you. Communication: 1. Finding reasons to talk to you or spend time together. 2. Asking personal questions to get to know you better. 3. Laughing at your jokes. 4. Complimenting you often. 5. Remembering small details about you. Context is important. These factors depend a lot on culture, but the ones listed generally apply to everyone. Story 8. Here are some signs that someone finds you attractive that I completely missed when I was younger. When I was younger at university, I lived in a flat with a really attractive woman. I missed so many obvious signals that she was interested in me at the time. I think I just didn't believe that someone as good-looking as her would be interested in me. When we first met, a year before we shared a flat, we participated in a scary maze activity with other first-year university students during orientation week. She grabbed my hand at the start and held onto it the whole way through the maze, cuddling up to me during the scary parts. Somehow, I brushed that off as just her being scared. She even gave me her phone number afterward, and I assumed it was because she just wanted to be friends. Later, when we shared a flat, because I unintentionally friend-zoned her, she often wanted to study together and hang out. She frequently invited me into her room to study, and one time she even invited me to study with her in her bed. After studying for a bit, she said she was feeling sleepy, put away the books, and asked if I was sleepy too. I admitted that I was a bit sleepy, and she said I could stay in bed with her. I was grateful and then fell asleep. I randomly thought about it 10 years later and realized how foolish I was. Story 9. He becomes really shy and makes it obvious by stumbling over his words. The more he tries to present himself as an intelligent person, the worse his sentences come out. It made me laugh for a long time. This happened at work, and people wondered why he hurried away, embarrassed. Story 10. Some signs that I noticed in myself towards a person I specifically like include dressing well for when I see them again, looking at them without them noticing, asking how they are doing and trying to initiate a conversation. I usually don't even bother asking others how they are doing because I just don't care. This is not always a signal that people like you. It really depends on the person. Laughing at their jokes, which often relates to a similar sense of humor. Remembering things they have shared and asking about them. Commenting on their appearance, such as if they recently got a haircut. Smiling or grinning when our eyes meet or when I decide to engage with them again. Story 11. She wears a short black dress, thigh-high stockings, and heels to your date. While you're sitting at the bar, she places your hand on her thigh. Later, she mentions that she and her attractive friend, whom they are meeting up with, once had a threesome. If you were in my position, you might miss all of this. However, about a year later, after becoming just friends, she tells you directly that she was interested in you, and you missed the opportunity. Story 12. Their eyes expand or light up like an anime character. There are more smiles than usual. You simply make them happy for no reason. Story 13. She kept asking questions, pushing back her hair, and leaning in so that she could hear me in a noisy bar. It was a wonderful feeling, and I'm glad that it has taken me over 4 decades of existence to realize what she was doing. Story 14. As a man, I may no longer be attractive since I am 41 years old, but I used to be decent looking. Women would look me in the eyes, smile, be nice to me, play with their hair, and sit or walk close to me. Story 15. Barry Humphries used to say that you could tell if a woman liked you by her ankles. If she put them behind her ears, it was a good sign. Story 16. There was a moment in college about 15 years ago that I'll never forget. I was hanging out with my then boyfriend, now husband, in his hometown during a visit when we walked into a store where his old friend worked. They were chatting, and I was wandering the store when I overheard him quietly ask, "Is she with you?" Followed by, "Dude, nice." After receiving confirmation, I still ride that high. Story 17. When you constantly feel their eyes on you while not looking at them, it is often hard for people to divert their gaze from something that pleases their mind. Story 18. Eye contact. Adjusting their hair, smiling, facing you when sitting and chatting, greeting you every day. Story 19. When they take the time to talk to you and acknowledge you, they laugh even at bad jokes. Additionally, each time I slept with a girl for the first time, she was always perfectly groomed in all the right areas. They know what they want. Story 20. They make frequent eye contact, smile a lot, and want to be physically close. They go out of their way to help you and laugh at your jokes, even if they are not very good. Story 21. You catch them looking at you a lot, and they immediately look away when you notice. Also, if they make an effort to ignore you in a group setting without any particular reason. Story 22. A few years ago, I read that when something funny happens or is said, you naturally look for eye contact with the person you are most attracted to or connecting with in that situation. Since then, I have found it surprisingly reliable. Story 23. I refuse to recognize signs, so until I'm in their living room relaxing after a fun night out, I don't believe they are. Story 24. He married me and he is still married to me 23 years later. Either he thinks I am attractive or finds me hilarious to keep around. Story 25. If I cut an inch off my hair and they say, "New haircut? It suits you well." Or they laugh loudly at some simple pun I make. Story 26. In college, I was pledging a fraternity, and at our Valentine's Day party, I was working the keg. The house had over 100 people, and the party was wild. A girl walked up to me and said, "Hi, I think you're cute. Would it be all right if I kissed you?" I replied, "Sure," and we made out while I filled people's beers. I don't know her name, and I never saw her again. Story 27. When she directly told me, "I don't want to just be a casual hookup." That being said, I wouldn't have a problem with someone as handsome as you being intimate with me. Story 28. Usually, the sign for me is when they are happily married, have wonderful children, and are in a beautiful, non-toxic marriage. They see me in the store, ask how I'm doing, if I'm still single, and then say, "What? How can you be single? I used to have such a crush on you before I met my charming, attractive, intelligent, kind, loving partner right here, holding our beautiful child." I laugh pleasantly and walk off, paying as quickly as I can. I can't cry in the parking lot because they might see me, so I've got to get a quick 3-minute cry while on the road and pull myself together before I get a comforting diet soda from a fast food restaurant for $1.08. Don't sob in the drive-thru after you've given them the code. They can hear you even with the window rolled up. Story 29. They always complimented me with subtle flirting. An example is, "You're a really intelligent girl. I like that about you." Story 30. Back in school, I was good friends with a girl I liked but assumed she would never feel the same way because she saw me as just a friend. One day, we talked about a show I had just caught up on, and she suggested that we get together one night for a marathon. I agreed because I really loved the show and wanted to see her reaction to the good parts, so I invited her to my home. I prepared the TV room for the occasion with plenty of snacks and rearranged the couch with blankets and pillows for maximum comfort. However, when we started watching the show, it became apparent that she wasn't very interested, and she asked for a break. This annoyed me because I didn't understand why she would want to get together to watch it if she was going to get tired so quickly. I convinced her to keep going. Eventually, she fell asleep, and I ended up watching the show through the night. Even after we had breakfast and she left, It didn't occur to me that there might have been more to it until my mother found out a girl had stayed over and got upset. She changed her reaction when I explained what we had been doing and that nothing inappropriate had happened, after which she told me I was clueless and that the poor girl must have been frustrated. In all fairness, even then I didn't really believe it until the girl told me she was into me and wanted us to go out months later. Story 31. I once knew a girl in college who, to this day, I would count as one of the top 5 most attractive people in real life. We hung out a bit due to our mutual friends. I always had a girlfriend, but I wasn't particularly monogamous during those days. I wouldn't have pursued her if I had been single, given that she was so well put together, confident, intelligent, and had a lovely personality. Some years later, I met a girl through other mutual friends, and it turned out to be her sister, whom I didn't know existed. When I told her my name, she exploded with excitement, explaining that she had listened to her sister talk about her crush on me for so long. I was overwhelmed. This was decades ago now. Anyway, I think this kind of thing is more common than one might expect because I was no great prize. Story 32. I remember a woman at an old job liked me. She often found excuses to be around me or make conversation with me. You also have to pay attention to how they treat other people. If they are just friendly with everyone, that's one thing. If they give you a disproportionate amount of attention, that's another. Of course, nothing is certain, and this can be one sign among many. Story 33. These were the signs I chose to ignore as someone suffering from body dysmorphia and autism. She turned on a yoga channel and started doing yoga stretches in front of me on the living room floor while her mom was asleep upstairs at around 1 or 2 a.m. Once, while riding in the car, she mentioned she should come over to my house and give it a deep clean, with emphasis on the deep. She accepted my offer to go to New York City for my 25th birthday with me and slept in the same bed at the hotel. She let me cuddle with her several times in bed. She sent me a classic, "What are you doing?" text at around 3 a.m. one day. I saw it and pretended I didn't until waking up later that morning. I would catch her staring at me during our many movie nights, but when I say chill, I mean normal hanging out, not anything sexual. In hindsight, most people don't watch movies alone together while smoking and drinking unless they plan on being intimate. I took her out to Bonefish toward the end of our friendship, right after I started dating someone else. I had probably been seeing this other girl for about a month, early 2011, after the New York City trip. While we were eating, the conversation about our friendship comes up, and she says, "Yeah, name removed. Supposedly told you to put the boss on my shoulder and see what happens." Name removed was a long-time mutual friend, one I had known since childhood, though I didn't hang out with her until 2008. This guy had recommended that strategy to me since everyone knew I liked her, and she thought it was humorous when she caught wind of this advice. I remember asking her if she was glad I never made any sexual advances, and she brushed it off and we resumed eating. That was pretty much it. I dove deeply into my relationship with the other girl and cut off the one I truly wanted. This is the part one regret and feel bad about. I met the other girl online. She lived about half an hour away. Being with her felt easier, I suppose, because she was not as attractive as my friend and had a child. I thought the upkeep would be less expensive than wining and dining my friend without being intimate. Again, that was my fault. I recognized the signs but didn't expect women to look me in the eyes and say outright what they wanted. I was being self-defeatist. I'm not someone who would say my friend strung me along. She didn't, and I now understand where I went wrong. She was very attractive, to the point where she had a model-like photo of herself in a bikini on a car hood, framed and hung above the mantel at her mom's townhouse. It may sound strange, but her mother was very liberal and allowed her to do whatever she wanted as long as it didn't get her in trouble. I doubt many mothers would allow that, but what do I know? She was attractive enough that many men tried to date or have sex with her. Those are stories for another time. It's been about 13 years since we spoke, and we've both moved away from the city we were in. I think about her almost daily. I moved to the mountains. She moved to Washington, D.C., and is now dating someone who appears to be wealthy. I have definitely been with other beautiful women since, but she was the one. In summary, I had a beautiful woman in her mid-20s show interest in me multiple times throughout our close friendship. From what I was told, her mother was also interested. Honestly, I would be happy just knowing she thinks about me once in a while. Story 34. I was walking to a store when a man on a bike said, "Hey, can I get your number?" I was dressed poorly, so I guess I'm attractive. Story 35. As a woman, I have noticed certain behaviors. Nervousness, stuttering, blushing, tripping while looking at me, taking photos, and stalking are common. I often experience people staring, glancing back and forth, focusing on my mouth, buying expensive items for me, and even offering money for intimacy. Story 36. Constant staring, making conversation, laughing at your jokes even if they're bad, maybe even asking what you're doing tonight. In 21st century terms, if someone keeps sending you memes or content they know you like and making flirty jokes, that's also a sign. One of my good friends, who started out as someone I used to do freelance work with, did this, and I suspected he had a crush on me. I wasn't sure of his intentions and I didn't feel the same way, so I never said anything. Eventually, when we were having a catch-up chat, I mentioned that I had a date with an old university acquaintance in the coming week who was a film buff like us, which was true. He then admitted that he was going to ask me out. I broke it to him gently that I didn't see him that way and hoped it didn't ruin our friendship because he is a really good guy and a great friend. Fortunately, he was cool with it and it wasn't awkward afterward. We just had a very mature conversation about life for the rest of the night and became closer as friends. We still talk every day and send memes to each other, but I felt bad for some time afterward. Story 37. Compliments about your appearance are meaningful, especially if they give you a nice nickname and are more open with you than with others. Story 38. They giggle at any humorous thing you say, tilt their heads when you're talking to them, and seem uneasy and awkward, but they have no intention of leaving the conversation. It's important to remember that when someone behaves this way, typically women, but not limited to them, it doesn't necessarily mean they are attracted to you. They are probably just being nice. Story 39. I came here to read about all the things that have never happened to me and never will happen to me. Story 40. They light up when you speak to them. It's not just that they smile. Their whole facial expression indicates they are paying attention and eager to listen to what you have to say. I have a neutral expression and don't reciprocate, but I appreciate it. Story 41. When they say, after just meeting on a dating app 30 minutes earlier, I need you in ways that are concerning to feminism, it resonates with my self-esteem issues. I don't consider myself conventionally attractive. I have been working out consistently and trying to dress well, but I am of average height, losing my hair in a spot where I least want it while it is excessive in other areas, and I feel as though I am starting to show signs of aging. However, I must say that was a nice boost to my self-confidence. Story 42. They are constantly trying to communicate with you through synchronicities and signs from the universe because they are your twin soul, but they are scared of vulnerability. Story 43. I didn't notice because I was going about my business, but other people talked about how they looked at me and watched me constantly, no matter what we were doing, smiling while they did. It felt as though I was the most interesting thing they had ever seen. Story 44. He spent several weeks learning to speedrun the same video game I do to impress me, then began asking me to teach him the skills I use that no other players do to have an excuse to spend time with me. When I vented to him about a serious physical injury preventing me from competing for the world record, he spent months practicing, eventually beating every person who had taken the world record from me. He is still in third place on the leaderboard. Yes, I know you are on Reddit, and I will continue to call you out because I am proud of you. Story 45. When you speak in a group of people, they always hear what you say. If it is remotely funny, they will laugh. Story 46. After reading several comments, I can confidently say I have never noticed or experienced any of these issues. Even the remarks about reminiscing and only now realizing that signs were missed. Not a single instance comes to mind. Story 47. I never really thought I was attractive and I picked up signals late, almost feeling dense, until my entire block mates in college convinced me to sit in front of the class because the strict professor had a crush on me, and I needed to persuade him to delay the exams. I did. Literally, whatever I asked the professor, he did. From requesting bonus points to removing certain topics from the exam, I helped everyone pass the class. Then the professor asked me out on a date, and I demanded he give everyone a perfect score in exchange. Story 48. Random compliments. Nice shoes, you smell good, your hair looks great. Asking for help with the most basic things. The head tilt when looking at you. Asking to meet up when things could be done through messaging. Inquiring about your significant other even though they don't know them. I once was attractive, but now I am middle-aged. Those were the days. Story 49. I never knew and still don't. The fact that I managed to get married is still a mystery to me. Apparently, a few girls in high school found me attractive and attempted to communicate that to me, but I have always been oblivious. Story 50. Eye contact, giving their undivided attention to you during a conversation and wanting to be physically near you or touch you. Story 51. I don't know. I need people to tell me directly. I can't handle hints. I think everyone is being friendly, so I try to compare how they treat me with how they treat others. If I'm getting extra attention, then I think they like me. Just kidding, but I still can't tell or don't believe it. Story 52. As a guy, the signs can be difficult to understand. When I was 17, a girl said, "Oh, I can teach you to unhook a bra." She unhooked it 3 times, and I still didn't pick up on the signs. Story 53. I don't know anymore, to be honest. I just assume all women are being nice to me. To ensure I'm not fooling myself, I assume all women are engaged, married, or in a relationship. Keeps me out of trouble. If I do find out they find me attractive, it's usually from a friend of theirs much later. Story 54. They find flimsy excuses to see you, like, I overheard your roommate saying you were short on forks. We have too many. Here, have a few. Story 55. I have noticed that I enjoy observing the person's reactions to whatever we are experiencing together. I frequently glance over to see if they are enjoying themselves. Story 56. They provide their phone number without you asking and invite you to contact them if you want to hang out. It still hurts. Story 57. Yay! A post where I finally get to put my research to good use. The biggest issue is that they treat you differently than others. They may be more open and affectionate, or they could be more shy and reserved. Story 58. I knew my fiancé was attracted to me because when he was talking to someone else, he would constantly glance over at me to see if I was listening. Story 59. My boyfriend would take any chance he could to touch me. Not sexually, just leaning his arm against mine and giving me long hugs when saying goodbye. We were friends for a while first. Story 60. Their pupils will dilate when they first look at you. It is a biological reaction to seeing something that you find pleasing, and it indicates a desire to see more. Story 61. They constantly observe your lips while you talk. Their pupils dilate. They blush, and occasionally there is extra sweat on the upper lip or the eyebrows. There is an undeniable vibration in the air. Story 62. I sometimes catch my partner staring at me while I am doing normal things. What? I say. You're beautiful. They smile. I think that's a good sign. Story 63. I work in IT. One day in my office, I received a call about an issue and the caller asked where I was, as she was coming to meet me. Typically, I leave a bit of stubble, but the night before, I had shaved completely. The lady was talking to me on the phone as she came around the corner, looked up at me, and started stuttering, turning bright red. After about 30 seconds, she just turned and walked away. She never came back to ask me for a couple of days. We were both married at the time. Story 64. Signs that someone finds you attractive can include 1. Eye contact. Prolonged or repeated eye contact can be a sign of interest. Smiling and laughing. They smile or laugh more around you. Mirroring body language. They unconsciously mimic your gestures or posture. Initiating conversation. They often start conversations or find reasons to talk to you. Physical proximity. They stand or sit closer to you than usual. Compliments. They give genuine compliments about your appearance or personality. Remembering details. They remember things you've mentioned in previous conversations. Interest in your interests. They show interest in activities or hobbies you enjoy. These signs can vary depending on cultural context and individual personalities, but they often indicate that someone finds you attractive or interesting. Story 65. They screamed in your face at point-blank range. I find you quite inoffensive to my ocular nerves. After you recover from the verbal assault, you move closer to show your appreciation for the facts just delivered to your ears. Story 66. They will turn their toes toward you. Words and expressions can be deceiving. Toes are the furthest from the brain and the least disguised. Story 67. When they find an excuse to touch you, I remember going clothes shopping and handing the sales associate my credit card to pay. I held out my hand to receive my credit card back, and she placed her hand in mine. I imagine it was probably embarrassing for her, but it was the biggest compliment I've ever received in my life. Story 68. When they get excited about small things, such as food and activities, and can engage in deep and intelligent conversations without turning it into a debate of right or wrong. Being mindful and respectful of a person's needs. The ability to be very playful. Story 69. When they look at you with anticipation, trust, and joy, it may just be a close friend or relative. If you are inferring romantic and sexual attraction, relatives should not be your focus. Friends typically do not flirt, feel overly embarrassed, or speak in a sexual manner unless they feel comfortable. That's about it. Good luck. Story 70. Now that you mention it, I don't care anymore. I don't need anyone's approval of me but my own, which is ridiculously hard to achieve. I'm still working on it. Story 71. There was someone who seemed visibly nervous talking to me. We are both married. During an event where a group photo was taken, she made sure to stand right next to me. There were pretty certain signs. Story 72. Someone who had a crush on me and my spouse now seems to have feelings for me again. When something is funny or when we are watching something together, they constantly look at me for my reaction. My spouse does this all the time and it's really cute. When he sings certain parts of a song that relate to our relationship, he looks over at me. Story 73. I don't know how I did it because it's not something I've done before. I think I just took a chance. I am a furniture salesman and had a woman and her daughter come in to buy something. She was stunning. I never told her so, but I believe I made my interest quite clear, and it seemed she was giving off the same vibes. Well, I sold her about $4,300 worth of merchandise. She also paid for delivery, and I am the main delivery person. So, I delivered the items to her house and actually got to talk to her a bit. While in her house, I kept calling her ma'am or using her last name. She said I could just call her by her first name. She also kept coming into the room, not saying anything, but hovering over me or getting closer than a typical customer would. When I finished the delivery, I asked if she would be okay with me staying in touch. We talked that same day after I got off work, and I went over to her house later that night. We sat and talked for about 2.5 hours. I am the typical person who only gets dates through dating apps. I never have luck in person. But lately, I had given up on finding someone. So, for her to show up and for me to build the confidence to ask her out was completely out of the norm for me. Story 74. I don't know about other people, but if I find someone attractive and easy to be around, I fix their hair or clothes for them. I ask first because some people don't like being touched. Story 75. Oops. Oh no, I dropped my monster condom that I use for my large size. Story 76. I would have to say the only sign I have been able to pick up on is when a person tells me they find me attractive. Story 77. I am a Chinese girl living in the UK, and many guys have asked for my number for some reason. I do not give it to them as I prefer Chinese men. Story 78. I can only speak of 2 youthful experiences. Both were too late. The first one was in 5th grade. I was in the same grade but much smarter, and I was teaching her math. I don't remember much other than the pie charts. By the time her friend had told me, I had already played the just a friend role and was emotionally absent. Years later, I was told this. The second experience was in 9th or 10th grade. I had a huge crush on her friend. She started messaging me, unaware of my feelings, and eventually developed a crush on me. Our church attended a function I think was called Steubenville. There, she made many advances toward wanting a relationship and displayed other cute puppy love gestures. One day, I broke her heart. I remember it as if it were yesterday. She asked me if I loved her, and I told her no, I loved her friend. I never saw her again. I honestly thought I had an amazing friendship. It was revealed to me shortly after high school. She confronted me in a Walmart, the first time I had seen her in years. Oh, how interesting life has been. I'm sorry if I lost you. My primary language isn't English. Story 79. Signs someone finds you attractive include maintaining eye contact, smiling often, finding excuses to lightly touch you, and engaging in conversation with genuine interest. Story 80. When people observe you during funny or emotional moments in a group setting, it creates a psychological effect known as mirroring. Thanks a bunch for sticking around till the end of the video. Remember to subscribe, and until next time, stay awesome and goodbye.